In the process of dating her, there are a lot of things which I bore witness to.
Hi, I'm Savannah and I've been personally victimized by Regina George. And by Regina George, I mean Illuminati, or Blair, or whatever we want to call her.
This has included Oz sharing that he received a cease and desist from Blair, despite him being the only one to not yet make a video about her. Even worse, a second cease and desist letter was sent to Oz's father for seemingly no other reason than to make those around Oz suffer, which, to be fair, matches the recurring accusation that Blair tries to isolate people that go against her by attacking those around them.
Because, once again, allegedly, because of course everything in this video is alleged based on speculation and opinion, she is trying to sue him for his home.
Considering Blair's alleged white-collar crimes, I intend to expose with evidence within my video.
Blair had control of his finances, his home, his job.
That is demented. That is literal indentured. That is literally being indentured.
And now she's putting his home up for foreclosure? What the?
Despite this, Oz still intends to release his expose on Illuminati, to which Blair seems to have retaliated by seizing Oz's home, to which he responded by launching an incredibly successful GoFundMe for his legal fees, despite it briefly being taken down for false reporting.
That because she used company funds to assist me, that she had committed embezzlement.
Because you cannot be someone with a large amount of money, power, and influence who's misusing their money and power and influence behind the scenes, and yet simultaneously critiquing others who are misusing their money, power, and influence. That doesn't work. And yet that's exactly what Blair did.
And by converting the amount that I owed her into a loan with her company, this would save her skin legally.
Watching this person, Blair, make 6 figures a month by exposing scams and bad companies and bad people, while simultaneously being just as bad or worse than those people she's exposing, is infuriating to me.
You either die a hero or live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Blair, a YouTuber more commonly known by her screen name iilluminaughtii, has been a case study in girl bossing too close to the sun. If it weren't for the fact that this story were true and actively currently harming a lot of people, Blair's story could be like a modern day piece of Greek mythology, a fable about a tragic anti-hero who becomes so consumed by her own hubris that she ends up destroying not only her own life, but also the lives of those around her.
You're all like Icarus!
How long until Netflix or Hulu or one of those streaming services picks up Blair's story for like a little true crime docu-series? Place your bets in the comments below. Don't literally place your bets. I don't run a gambling ring. That's more of Blair's thing. Back in June, I made a video about the downfall of Illuminaughtii, once one of the biggest video essayists in my genre, the genre of business commentary, scam exposés, that kind of thing. I was even a month or so late to the game on releasing that video, but even with that in mind, there has still been so much more that has happened since my video came out. My video focused on the angle of examining Blair as a business owner, or more accurately, as a lesson in how not to run a business, a playbook on what not to do when working with family and friends. One of the least ethical bosses we've seen so far in millennial startup culture. And maybe even the head of a company town, an aspiring cult leader herself. One area where my video focused was on Blair's interest in owning the homes of her employees, creating something eerily similar to the company towns that we saw in the coal mining industries in decades past, and similar to what we're seeing today with behemoths like Elon Musk and Kanye West do what they're doing in buying their own plots of land for their own employees and fans and following to live on. Funnily enough, Blair very recently made a video against Elon Musk just over a month ago at the end of August 2023. In this video, which has a dislike count more than double the number of likes with a 1,500 to 3,700 like to dislike ratio, Blair accuses Elon Musk of being the world's dumbest tech bro and says a lot of things about Elon that could just as easily apply to someone else we know.
Simply because I've just never seen a billionaire have such a cult following before. But is the love really deserved? Well, Elon sure seems to think so. He claims to be this self-made genius who's just better than the rest of us normies. If he's such a great businessman, then why does he look like an absolute idiot right now? Couldn't it be that Elon is actually human like the rest of us, and maybe just a really manipulative human at that? Elon Musk's reputation is heading for the toilet.
Fortunately, Blair's viewers are smart. After all, Blair intentionally cultivated an audience of skeptical viewers. People who want to call out scams, people who like to think critically, people who don't just trust business people at face value. And because Blair gathered such a smart audience, she essentially dug her own grave. These people were able to instantly point out the parallels of what Blair was saying about Elon Musk with the things that she was actually doing herself. All the top comments on the video were things like this. Ironic that she says Elon treats employees like dirt, isn't it? I actually thought Elon was a terrible person until Blair said, hold my beer. I love calling out people who do the same things as me because I'm especially aware of my consequences. Needless to say, ignoring the controversies that she's stirred up has not been going well for Blair. And in the months since my previous video, Blair's channel has continued to decline. She now has 1.34 million subscribers, having lost another 100,000 subscribers in the past 3 months. She's now lost nearly a quarter of her fan base, which is wild. Most YouTubers don't even have most of their subscribers actively watching all the time, so having a quarter of the people who watch you feeling strongly enough to hit the unsubscribe button, that means her career is really tanking. Regardless, Blair has continued to post her usual videos. Since the Illuminaughtii exposed video she posted this past April, Blair has posted more than 50 new videos, and almost none of them have broken 100,000 views. Many barely breaking 30,000, which for someone like me with under 100,000 subscribers on my channel, that's to be expected. But for someone like Blair with over 1 million subscribers, that's abysmal.
You blew it!
It's clear that Blair has been wanting to return to her regular content, posting videos about the unethical practices going on at McDonald's, the issues with megachurch leaders like Kenneth Copeland, various cults operating throughout the world, and issues with self-help industry leaders like Tony Robbins. And while I agree with the overall arguments that Blair is making in these videos, most people can agree that she's probably not the right person to be making them. And that's especially true with everything that's been going on in the past 2 months. In just the past 2 months, Blair has been accused of plagiarism by creators within the anti-MLM community, has been exposed by one of her former victims, video essayist Cruel World Happy Mind, and has unsuccessfully tried to threaten her former collaborator Oz Media with legal threats, only for Oz to come out revealing that Blair herself is the one with a lot of scams to hide. So is it possible that Blair's pyramid-shaped head wasn't exactly ironic? Could it be that Blair is the main villain in this situation, that she's exactly the same as the people and the corporations she covers in her videos?
We're not so different, you and I.
That Blair never had a place to talk about pyramid schemes or NFTs or unethical corporations when she herself was employing the exact same practices in the running of her YouTube channel. Was Blair the real scammer all along? Well, yeah, I think so. Why else would I be making this video?
Hit you some nuts.
Yeah, you effing.
Up yours, woke moralist. We'll see who cancels who.
Hey, what's up, my fellow small business supporters? I'm Savvy. Welcome back to Savvy Writes Books. This is the channel where we talk about books and business, and that includes book discussions, literary discussions, and book reviews and breakdowns, and also business commentary discussions of unethical business practices going on with large corporations and the movement against multi-level marketing companies, all of that. So if those type of videos interest you, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button because I put out new videos about those types of topics every week. This video does not have a sponsor. However, it was brought to you by my Patreon supporters. Thank you so much to everyone who supports me on Patreon. Patreon supporters' names are listed up on the screen. In the description below, you can take a look at Patreon supporters who contribute $5 a month and up, where they have the option to link their own small businesses or their own craft sites, their own art and merch, their own channels, their own social media, whatever they want to promote. Go ahead and check that out in the description below. And thank you so much to everyone who supports this channel. And since we don't have a sponsor, and since it's the start of October right now when we're coming on Halloween, I'm gonna give a quick self-promo, and that is for Max the Vampire Kitty! Max the Vampire Kitty is the most recent picture book that I've written, and it is the latest book in the Forever Home Friends series. If you guys don't know, I run my own small business called Forever Home Friends, which produces picture books, stuffed animals, merch, and more, which is all based on the stories of real rescue dogs and cats and their stories of getting adopted. We also donate 10% of our profits to animal shelters in the Chicago area. And if you want a fun Halloween story, we've got Max the Vampire Kitty. He comes with a little vampire cape, and his story is all about Max trying to find his forever home while trick-or-treating on Halloween and making himself a little vampire costume. I personally think it's a pretty cute story, so you can check out foreverhomefriends.com along with Max the Vampire Kitty available on that site, which is all linked in the description below. I just think he's so cute. He's honestly one of my favorite plushies. I love his little blue eyes. Isn't he adorable? Thank you, Max. All right, let's get back to the topic. Now, I do highly recommend that you watch my other video about the Illuminati situation before watching this one, since that video goes into everything that happened up to this point and it goes over it in detail. However, in case you don't want to pause the video right now and go watch the other video, I'm going to give you a very quick recap with all the relevant information up to this point. Let's go. So back in April, Illuminaughtii, a channel with about 1.7 million subscribers, was making her usual anti-multi-level marketing, also known as anti-MLM content, along with anti-scam content, critiques of capitalism, all of that type of stuff, raking in hundreds of thousands of views per video. And then one day, all of a sudden, she decided to accuse fellow YouTuber Legal Eagle of plagiarism, saying that his video editing style looked a little too close to hers, despite the fact that both of them were just using normal video editing techniques like highlighting effects. Anyway, Legal Eagle replied, politely telling her that he hadn't stolen anything from her. However, this caused a large-scale conflict on Twitter, which led to people starting to ask Blair's former collaborators, including her friends The Click, Media, and Wonderstruck, whether they supported Blair's rude behavior toward Legal Eagle. In response, these creators posted their own Twitter threads explaining that they're no longer associated with Blair due to her bad treatment of them as friends and as employees and collaborators. Blair, hoping to stay ahead of the criticism, made a YouTube video entitled Illuminaughtii Exposed, in which she addressed her conflict with Legal Eagle, apologized to him, and then explained why she wasn't at the fault for her conflicts with Wonderstruck, The Click, and Media. She essentially accused them of being the ones at fault, claiming that The Click had done awful things like allow a child predator into his Discord server, and explained that she had been a great boss to Wonderstruck, who was mentally unstable, and ended her video by reading a letter that he left before considering to end his life. Needless to say, this video did not go over well. Most of Blair's audience found it disgusting that she'd expose a former friend and employee's private mental health information like that, and on top of that, The Click came out with a response video of his own disproving Blair's accusation that he'd allowed a predator into his Discord server. He then went on to detail how false accusations were kinda Blair's thing, even bringing up examples of her using sock puppet accounts to bully her friends online. Wonderstruck made his own response video as well, explaining all the ways that Blair had tried to control his entire life while she employed him, including things like owning his car and owning his house, and all of her future plans to go into real estate, hoping one day to own all of her employees' homes and be their landlord.
You owe me your life!
Since her initial Illuminaughtii Exposed video, Blair hasn't addressed the situation further, other than a few tweets about how she's planning to get lawyers involved. Instead, she's just been continuing to pump out her regular videos.
We're all caught up now, let's go.
Now, since my last video came out, Blair's subscriber count has continued to plummet, now down to 1.34 million subscribers, which for a channel that's on the climb, that would be an amazing number, but for a channel that was closing in on 2 million subscribers previously, that is a horrific drop in viewership. While Blair's videos used to regularly bring in anywhere from 300,000 to 1 million views, her last 13 videos haven't even broken 30,000 views. Her last video to surpass 30,000 views at the time that I'm filming this was a month ago, and even that one only got 33,000. Her last 22 videos at the time that I'm filming this have not broken 50,000 views. The last one to break 50,000 views was called Kenneth Copeland is a Real-Life Supervillain, which came out more than 2 months ago, and has a 2.6 thousand like to 7.2 thousand dislike ratio, featuring comments like this. You're one of YouTube's biggest villains. Aren't you a real-life villain yourself? Wow, Blair, that's pot calling the kettle. Speaking of real-life supervillains, we've got ourselves a real pot versus kettle situation right here. You wouldn't have to work so hard if you acknowledged the facts, made true amends, and tried to be a better person instead of a narcissist. I just don't understand it. Damn, Blair, kinda ironic and hypocritical to be making a video about someone being a supervillain. At the time that I'm scripting this video, I'm looking at videos that Blair put out a matter of hours 2 days ago, and they're filled with comments like this. I don't see why I should trust you, Blair, when you are engaged in equally inhumane practices as the companies you call out. Someone else with integrity needs to cover these topics. Why is this channel still getting sponsors? I love how your views are like 1/10 of what they were. Basically, Blair's fans are done with her. Despite her best efforts, she hasn't been able to move on from this like nothing's happened. And I'm really not surprised. How can you gather an audience of people who love to critique unethical business practices and then be surprised when they get mad at you for employing the exact same things that you accuse other bad bosses of? 3 new videos have dropped within the past couple months that we are going to talk about today. First, a video by fellow anti-MLM creator Savannah Marie discussing her experiences with Blair's plagiarism. Second, a video by Cruel World Happy Mind, another video essayist in the anti-scam commentary genre who was bullied horribly by Blair back in 2021. And finally, the bombshell video from Oz Media, Blair's former content collaborator, former roommate, former romantic partner, former employee, and potentially former indentured servant.
That is demented. That is literal indentured. That is literally being indentured.
There is a lot to unpack here, so let's get to it. Potential plagiarism. What kicked off all of this controversy was Blair's accusation of plagiarism against Legal Eagle, but in a true Illuminati fashion, the majority of her accusations are just projections. If Blair is accusing Legal Eagle of plagiarism, then who's surprised when she ends up being the one to actually plagiarize others? As others pointed out months ago, Blair's first accusations of plagiarism came from Bomber Guy, a video essayist who's no stranger to calling out plagiarism. Just go ahead and watch his video about the Roblox oof sound. It's one of my favorite long-form video essays of all time. It's actually this huge epic tale about the importance of creators getting credit for their own work. I love it. So when Blair first accused Legal Eagle of plagiarism, Bomber Guy was there to point the finger right back at her.
Identity theft is not a joke, Jim.
As Bo Blacks reported in his video, Twitter versus Illuminati.
Bomber Guy quote tweets Illuminati and says, "Just to clarify, one of Legal Eagle's editors asked one of your editors what plugin they use for a personal video they were working on for their own channel. I take plagiarism really seriously, so I'm interested in an explanation of what exactly is wrong here." He then shares a Twitter video with the caption, "Personally, Illuminati, I would define plagiarism as something a bit more specific. For example, copying someone else's documentary directly into your script."
Professor Hugh Fudenberg.
Professor Fudenberg has long been controversial.
A man named Hugh Fudenberg, a former immunologist who has been long controversial.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit involving the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic child patients with blood products.
In 1989, he was caught up in a bizarre lawsuit with the Food and Drug Administration, which told him he had to stop injecting his autistic patients with blood products.
So, viewers found this a bit sus. Blair defended herself by saying she wasn't plagiarizing. She had cited this other documentary as a source in her video. And at the time, I was willing to let it go at that. If she'd cited it as a source and included bits of it in her video, then maybe it wasn't intentional plagiarism. Maybe she really did mean well. That was before all the other stuff came out about her, but now there's even more evidence that this probably was just plagiarism all along.
Who's that Pokemon? It's plagiarism.
Much like Blair's other controversies, this is just one data point in a long-standing pattern of behavior. A couple months ago, anti-MLM YouTuber Savannah Marie released her own video titled My Experience with Illuminati, in which she detailed the ways that Blair had used her research without credit as well. You may remember that in my first video, I talked about how Blair had released a video back in 2021 about an MLM company called BOO, or Black Oxygen Organics. Savannah explains this situation in her video as well.
Found this out, I was just watching it all go down. But when you look up the bog that the CEO, Mark St. Onge, said that he was getting the dirt from, it is catty corner, like diagonal on the map to a landfill. So you basically have this CEO who's digging mud out of a nasty Canadian bog that's right next to a landfill and selling it to people for $100 a bag. Like, long story short.
And saying it's like a miracle cure for all of their issues.
They're eating it. They're bathing in it. They are drinking it. They are rubbing it on their faces as a paste. They're feeding it to their children.
Because Blair wanted to make a video about Boo herself, she sent one of her writers into a Facebook group called Boo is Woo, which had been working for about 8 weeks at this point, gathering research about the company for their own videos and their own exposés. The group had also served as a place for former Boo representatives to tell their own stories, which they wanted to do privately, fearing repercussions from the company. This Facebook group operated with its members not to publicize their private information while also working together to gather research on the company.
A lot of research went into this, and we had multiple group chats full of other creators, other people who weren't even creators, who were just like really into researching MLM stuff. Like, we had a lot of people behind the scenes digging up a bunch of stuff, for lack of a better term. And one of the group chats I was in was also the group chat that had like all the mods to a Facebook group that we had called Boo is Woo. And they one day sent a message to the group chat and was like, by the way, just so you guys know, Blair/Illuminati's writer just requested to join the group. I denied them. And obviously, literally the reason why, and I think she even says it in the messages, I sent you the screenshots, but I'm pretty sure she straight up was like, after what she did to Madison, like, we don't want to help Blair. We don't want anything to do with her. Like, we've been working too hard on this.
Yeah.
At this point, I'd have been like already scripting my deep dive for a week or two, maybe. Like, I mean, just kind of organizing everything, like so
and
much.
It's more so just knowing that she probably was not going to credit you guys like properly.
That's exactly what it was.
Because of Blair's reputation within the anti-MLM community, which includes her mistreatment of Cruel World Happy Mind, which we'll get to a little bit in the next section, plus her disparagingly talking about other creators within the anti-MLM movement on a public podcast that she went on, most other creators in the genre did not trust Blair at this time. They were worried that she'd take their work without credit or might steal private, personal stories of theirs for her video.
That's exactly what it was.
As a result, the moderator of the group declined Blair's writer's request to join the group. Now, in my first video about Illuminaughtii, I mentioned that I had some mixed feelings on this decision. I understood the mod's hesitancy, but part of me thought it would have been an act of goodwill to let the writer in, because after all, research against MLM companies is going to benefit all of us in the long run. But after reflecting on the situation more, after reading some comments from you guys and learning a little bit more about Illuminaughtii, yeah, I was probably wrong to have mixed feelings on that. The mod was absolutely right not to let Blair's writer into the group. Blair had already proven that she couldn't be trusted to give other creators credit, and the ways that she'd been shit-talking the other creators in the movement showed that she didn't have respect for other creators that is necessary to be around other people's sensitive stories. Plus, Blair needs to know that no means no, but much like a multi-level marketing representative or any pushy high-volume salesperson, Blair doesn't operate under the premise of no means no. She operates under no means try again, don't take no for an answer, no means follow up later and make the sale after 8 to 10 points of contact. So Blair's writer requested again when another mod was online, and then that moderator who didn't know the full story did let her into the group.
What happened was when the writer was denied access, they found out and then sent the lead moderator, I guess, of the Facebook group an email like, why didn't you let me in? And then they sent another request, and then another mod saw that without seeing the chat and let them in. So this writer ended up getting into the Facebook group, and they were there for about an hour, give or take, before like we realized like, oh my god, we need to like get him out. And at that point they had already made a post, and they were just like, hi, I'm Blair, Illuminaughtii's writer, blah blah blah, what should I know about all this stuff? I think they were particularly looking for a lot of the health claims, and there were certainly like a whole archived so many people saying they're pooping out worms when really it was just their intestinal lining, like people getting sores, people putting it on tumors and claiming that it was like shrinking, that like wild stuff. But to us, we were just like, dude, go do your own research. Like, we're just a little bundle of idiots here, just like putting all this stuff together. If we can do this, you're fully capable of doing it yourself, and you're not going to credit us anyway. So like, just go do it yourself, dude.
Savannah makes a really good point here. If Blair's the queen of research, if she's so good at researching like she's bragged about in the past, why couldn't she just find all this information about Boo on her own? Sure, the Facebook group was a place for consolidating information, but that was being done among a group of creators who already trusted one another and had this understanding that they were going to give each other proper credit. Outside of individual ex-reps' personal stories, which was information that shouldn't be made public anyway, all of the other information about this company was already publicly available if Blair was willing to do the work to look for it. But instead of doing her own research like she claims that she's great at, Blair decided to take a shortcut and steal information from a group that had denied her entry.
At this point, I want to say we started researching in like July, and my video came out at the end of August, I think. So around like 6 to 8 weeks probably, just compiling like here and there. Like I know Roberta Blevins was doing little TikToks here and there, like little tiny updates. Other people were making small updates on Instagram or something, but I was working on putting together the entire deep dive, like all of the information that we had gathered for that 6 to 8 weeks into one cohesive video that was easy to consume. And that's what I did. And then lo and behold, 2-3 weeks later, here comes Blair. Hey guys, I got a video. It seemed very obvious where she got a lot of her information from. And obviously I don't have like solid proof of what it was exactly she got, what information she used, but all I know is that I was never credited. Personally, what they did do was put the Facebook link in, like, cause she has like a document of sources that she does for her videos. So she put the link to the Facebook group as a source, but it's a private Facebook group and you have to like request to join it. It's archived now, so I don't think anyone can join it. But like at the time, yeah, it was like people can't just go there and get whatever sources they want. It was like a private Facebook group. So instead of crediting the people who were actually doing the work, she just put a post or a link to a Facebook group.
A Facebook group that doesn't exist anymore.
This is what's so awful too. Every single creator in the Boo is Woo Facebook group had a significantly smaller following than Blair. At the time, Blair's channel had between 700,000 and 1 million subscribers. The biggest creator in the Boo is Woo group was probably Savannah Marie herself, whose channel is roughly the same size as mine, so that's to say less than a tenth of the size of Blair's channel. If Blair did really care about extending an olive branch to the other creators that she disparaged before, why not reach out to those creators to credit them in her video? Why not give them a shout out? Why not help each other grow? Instead, Blair used the group's research herself, credited the group as a whole with just a link to the Facebook group that was at the time private and is now defunct, so not actually linking to any of the creators who did that research or having a link where you could find any of them from it. No crediting them on screen, none of that anywhere in her video.
What really hurt the most is that I ended up getting a cease and desist letter from Black Oxygen Organics for my involvement in all this. And while I never talked to Blair, I tried to reach out to her to ask, because when I got the letter, I know another creator got a cease and desist also for content she was making. So I tried to reach out to Blair. I just wanted to kind of have the full story, like who are they reaching out to? Who are they trying to bully into submission, you know? And Blair had her DMs turned off, so I didn't have a way to reach her. I mean, I guess I could have started commenting on all her shit, but like now knowing everything we know about Blair, it's like she wouldn't have talked to me. She wouldn't have given me the time of day. Like, so it was my first cease and desist letter I'd ever gotten. A few years later, I've gotten plenty now, so I'm like not scared of them anymore. But it was like I ended up actually hiring a lawyer to go through with the response for this, because they were actually, Black Oxygen Organics was suing someone else. They were suing one of their ex-distributors. So it was kind of like one of those things like, they're suing someone else, they could potentially sue you too, so let's just like be careful and be cautious about it. And it was a bullshit cease and desist letter. Like, it's kind of a point of pride for me now, because they wrote poo-poo on a legal document and sent it to me. So like, I'm like, I got a lawyer to write poo-poo in a cease and desist letter. Like, love that. Great job, Savannah. At the time, it was really stressful. Like, I remember that day, like just sobbing to my husband, just like so stressed out, because then I had to like, I went like point by point. It was like a 3-page letter and they were telling me all this, like I had to debunk all of it and send it to a lawyer and then pay 4 figures of doll hairs of my own money to a lawyer to respond with all this. So much stress. And did Blair go through any of that? Probably not. If she had received a cease and desist letter for the same thing, I get the feeling she would have posted something. Someone would have heard something. But to our knowledge, like, she just kind of got to go away scot-free. She got to make her video, allegedly use our research for it, and then not have to deal with any of the repercussions that the rest of us were.
This is important to remember when it comes to the size of a creator's platform. Not all creator platforms are equal in terms of the revenue they generate or the influence that they have on public discourse. But in the eyes of a big corporation, they're absolutely equal in how hard they get hit with the cease and desist. And they are equal in terms of how much a lawyer is going to cost them per hour. I've talked to Savannah before about how much she makes per month on YouTube, and it's roughly the same amount that I make per month, which for me is enough to cover my basic bills. Half my mortgage payment, with my spouse covering the other half of that, food for my dogs, my internet bills, etc. I'm lucky if I can put $200 a month into a savings account after that. And maybe Blair did get a cease and desist from Boo. We don't know for sure either way, but what we do know is that Blair had the audience size, the income, and the resources to fight that legal battle a lot more easily than a much smaller creator could. In this video, Savannah is talking with Madison from Cruel World Happy Mind, and Madison essentially points out the same idea.
And then in that video, you don't credit any of those creators. You only link to that Facebook group. Mm-hmm. You don't say in that video, thank you to this community, thank you to these people who have been doing research, which is already disappointing. Mm-hmm. Then weeks later, months later, I don't know how long of a period of time, but you see cease and desists raining down on those creators. You see them kind of virtually being harassed by this company to a certain extent, and you do nothing about it. You stay completely silent. You don't speak up. You don't reach out to them to help them. And you have a larger platform. You have more power. So not only do you do nothing to help them, but you're actively doing things to harm them and to step over them to try and remain on top on YouTube, utilizing their research to try and gain a foothold on the YouTube platform. And I just think that's a really harmful way of being a creator on YouTube.
Imagine if Blair had taken a more collaborative approach to YouTube content creation and less of a competitive one. Had she credited those creators and built actual rapport with them, they all could have worked together when the cease and desists hit. Imagine if Blair had used her platform to share the GoFundMes of smaller creators targeted by legal threats instead of using her influence to extend legal threats against other people herself. We're gonna get into all that shortly too.
April 6, 2023 is when I uploaded my Olive Tree People deep dive. Let me see when Blair did hers. Hers was May 22nd, 6 weeks after mine, so she had plenty of time to do this. My thumbnail says, Olive Tree People new MLM, you can talk to trees for only $13,000. Her title is the MLM that sells tree frequencies. I'm sorry, but like, I'm one of the only people who was covering it. There were a few others who were doing some lives here and there, but for the most part, like, I think I'm the only one who did like a real deep dive on it. And then all of a sudden, 5-6 weeks later, here comes Blair, and it's the same shit that I said, not credited at all. So do we know for sure that she did use my research in her video? No. When you told me that she used a clip of me in her Gary Young video, okay, you know who I am then, dude. You know I make content about MLMs and I do deep dives.
It could have been a great opportunity
to do something with her platform, to help people, to help other creators.
Of course, not every content creator is going to remember or be able to credit like every other video that's been done before them on a certain topic, or, you know, it's like that would be really hard to do. But it is certain like ethics of like remembering to just shout out certain content creators, or just, you know, especially, you know, smaller content creators. If you're a larger content creator with a bigger platform, being able to utilize your platform and understand the power that it holds and not use it to stomp on people and try and like be the only person at the top, like a pyramid scheme, you know?
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
This piece of the video is really important as well because it shows that Blair, or at the very least Blair's writers and editors who are employees of hers and operating under her as the figurehead, they do know who Savannah Marie is. They've used pieces of her content in the past, and if they use those with credit, yeah, no problem. Or if Blair had forgotten to credit someone once or twice and then fixed the mistake when she'd been called out, okay, again, no problem, we all make mistakes. But instead, just like everything else we've discussed, this is yet another data point in a long blockchain-shaped pattern of behavior of Blair's that she has refused to fix. As we know, Blair doesn't take criticism well. When people reach out to ask her for credit, or even just to talk about the potential of having used bits of their work, Blair likes to go scorched earth on them. And nobody knows this better than the other person Savannah's talking to in this video, Cruel World Happy Mind herself. Cruel World Happy Mind speaks out. At the end of July, Cruel World Happy Mind finally released a video about Blair, which not only covered all of Blair's many scandals, but also included a nearly hour-long section telling her own story of being personally victimized by Blair Gina George. Back in 2020, Madison, who goes by the username Cruel World Happy Mind on YouTube, was a newer creator. Her channel grew fairly quickly, and within the first few months of content creation, her channel had risen to around 20,000 subscribers. Madison, who was a fan of Blair's work at the time, enjoyed creating content in a similar genre, videos breaking down the harms of multi-level marketing companies and overall scams. At the time, she had created a video about Tyra Banks, supermodel and host of America's Next Top Model, and the MLM that Tyra herself had been running at the time called Tyra Beauty. Shortly after Madison's video came out, Blair released a video of her own on the same topic. Madison began receiving comments on her video about how Blair's recent videos seemed very similar to hers, some comments even suggesting that Madison checked to see if Blair had stolen any of her work. At the time, Madison was hoping to avoid any kind of stressful situation because she was dealing with a very difficult pregnancy.
And I was so scared during early pregnancy, which is called the first trimester. It's a really fragile state of pregnancy. You want to limit stress as much as possible, and you want to rest as much as possible. So I was terrified of losing my baby. at that point. And so I was trying so hard to limit my stress and stay as healthy as possible because I was already really, really sick. And so the doctors were just urging me to stay healthy and limit my stress. And then all of a sudden, I end up in one of the most stressful dramas I have ever experienced, where someone is trying to ruin my career and attack me online.
And to make things worse, according to Madison, Blair knew that she was pregnant, which makes sense considering that Madison had made videos specifically about how difficult her pregnancy was.
Blair put me through all of this. You knew I was pregnant, and you still attacked me online. You said mean and hurtful things about me. You did not care if your followers attacked me, what stress that would cause me. Never really apologized to me publicly. Just said we were both stupid. You didn't really care about my health at all. The entire time you only cared about protecting yourself. Yet I was so stupid and believed you could grow as a person. Like we were going to have this awesome woman growth moment that wasn't about drama and clicks and views and was just about two people moving on from it all and growing and caring about a broader message of exposing scams and MLMs and harmful people and practices. But you don't even care about that. You didn't care about hurting me. You don't care about any broader message. You just care about you.
This section of Madison's video was really hard to listen to, especially because I remember all of this going down pretty well. I've always liked Madison as a person. I think she does high quality work, and every interaction I've ever had with her has been very pleasant and very friendly. I think she's really sweet. I've never had any interaction one-on-one with Blair before, but at the time I did really like her videos as well. And when these creators were in conflict, I remember being so relieved to hear that they'd resolved their differences and that they were considering actually becoming friends and working together. However, as Madison points out, she soon learned that Blair didn't actually want a friendship. She was just using her. In this video, Madison mentions a few times that she feels bad about having trusted Blair and feeling naive that she'd ever felt hopeful that they might become friends. And I honestly wish she didn't feel bad about that. I make that exact same mistake all the time. By nature, I'm just a really trusting person, and I think it's easier to go through life assuming the best intentions on the part of other people. And yeah, that means sometimes I'm gonna get burned by other people if their intentions weren't genuine, but that's the other party's fault. That blame falls on the deceptive person. In this case, Blair is at fault for manipulating Madison into trusting her only to completely discard her once she didn't find her useful anymore. This is a theme that's going to continue throughout the video. Blair treating everyone from employees to online colleagues to friends to romantic partners as pawns, as items that she can use to further her own career and then throw them in the trash the second she can't personally benefit from them anymore.
So some of the people who had watched my channel also messaged me saying, hey, I think you should also check out this podcast with the Welsh twins, because she also went on this podcast and said some pretty nasty things about you on there too. And then my stomach sinks, because first off, I'm like, okay, she's subtweeting me, making Instagram story posts about me. Now this podcast, how many things am I gonna have to track of what Blair's saying about me? And then also, oh my gosh, what the heck did she say about me now? What did I do that was supposedly so bad?
So we're at the point in the story where Madison had messaged Blair letting her know that her viewers had suspected Blair of stealing some of her work. And if you've seen my previous video on this topic, you know that Madison's message to Blair was super nice. She didn't accuse her directly of anything. She didn't demand credit, nothing. Instead, all she did was bring up the situation and asked if they could discuss it. Blair ignored Madison, at the time probably viewing her channel as being too small and insignificant to matter, which is also just crazy to me. It takes a lot of work and a lot of skill to even gain your first few thousand subscribers on YouTube. Ignoring Madison was one thing, but Blair took it a step further. She went onto a podcast to talk shit about Madison's messages, completely misrepresenting them.
So I listened to this podcast. On this podcast, she's claiming that I was like angrily claiming that she copied me and my content, and I asked her for credit.
So she messages me and she goes, I'm just really disappointed because you're someone I look up to and you copied my video and I want credit.
which, if you remember from my original DM, in that DM, I never once asked for credit. I never said, I want credit, give me credit. Never in that tone did I ever say that. So she literally spread a blatant lie about me on this podcast for no reason. She said I was a really small YouTuber, very much talking down to me in a demeaning way.
I'm gonna try and keep it vague so I don't mention this person's channel, but it's a very small YouTuber.
Which just goes to show how she views small YouTubers in general. She claimed that I wanted to follow and mimic her content style, which was not true at all. I had no intentions of becoming a corporate content mill.
She even admitted, well, kind of, that she was restructuring her channel to kind of mock my own channel.
I'm good on that one. And so I'm listening to this and freaking out because now all of a sudden I was wondering if she was going within the YouTube community, telling people who I was to all of these larger YouTubers. So there were all these rumors about me and no one would ever want to associate with me.
So I can completely see how this made the entire anti-MLM community lose trust in Blair. Not only did she treat Madison as insignificant, she treated all of us that way. She pretended not to know that this community existed and then contradicted herself by saying that her videos are better research than the rest of ours. If you're so good at research, Blair, why do you need to sneak into other people's Facebook groups to steal their research? But on top of that, we also know that Blair was already familiar with the anti-MLM community because, as I pointed out in my previous video, Blair used to be a Reddit YouTuber. About 4 years ago, she reacted to posts on the anti-MLM subreddit every single week. She knew this community existed, but she wanted to be the only one to profit from it.
Me making that message to her gave Blair an opportunity to crush another anti-MLM creator, and that's really all she wanted to do. She wanted to be the only anti-MLM creator, the only commentary channel, and was competitive and mean and cruel with every YouTuber because of that.
This clip also made me really sad. I think YouTube, like all creative ventures, works best when you view it as something collaborative rather than something competitive. The more people calling out shady MLM companies, the better. You don't have to be the only channel or the biggest channel, though at the time Blair was up there as one of the biggest channels, but there's room for all of our voices on this platform. When we support each other, we spread the message further, we educate more people, and that's a good thing. Again, imagine an alternate universe where Blair had respected Madison, shouted her out on her own channel, maybe promoted Savannah's channel at the time that she was having to pay legal fees against a cease and desist. Imagine a universe where Blair and other creators in this movement made collaborative videos together, rather than Blair trying to distance herself and make more money than the rest of us. That would have been a much nicer outcome. But as we're going to see as we get further into this video, I'm not sure Blair was ever actually against MLMs on principle. In fact, her own business practices have now been exposed to be eerily similar to the creepy, cult-like, high-control tactics that MLMs use. After Blair had talked negatively about Madison on this podcast, Madison released a video defending herself. This video, which has now been deleted, was part of a larger expose on Kimberlea, whom we talked about in the previous video on iilluminaughtii as well.
Deja vu, huh?
Basically, for a very quick recap, Kimberlea was an anti-MLM YouTuber back in 2020 and 2021. However, in early 2021, she made a live stream about how she was leaving this type of content behind and would instead be joining an MLM, the company Monate that sold shitty shampoo in a pyramid-shaped structure. In her video, she basically admitted that she'd only been creating this type of content because it was profitable for her at the time. She didn't really care about ending pyramid schemes, kind of like what Blair's doing. Nowadays, Kimberlea makes true crime content and has more subscribers than ever before, so she definitely just got away with everything.
Gotten away with it too.
Anyway, Kimberlea had been creating drama among multiple creators behind the scenes, sliding into people's DMs to shit talk other creators to one another. At the time, she had over 200,000 subscribers, and Madison had between 20 and 50,000, still a newer creator at the time. Madison trusted Kimberlea, who befriended her at the time, and Kimberlea had encouraged Madison to send Blair these messages, claiming that she also didn't trust Blair. When Madison talked about Blair in her video back in 2021, it was part of a larger video about Kimberlea's continuous manipulation of other creators within this community. In Madison's video, she didn't mention Blair's name once. Rather, she talked about a conflict that she'd had with a much larger creator, as she called her, and defended herself against Blair's accusations that she'd made on the Double Cleanse podcast.
It's a very small YouTuber, and she DM'd me on Instagram claiming that I copied her.
Even though Madison never even mentioned that it was Blair she was talking about, Blair realized it was her, got super upset, and even started threatening to make a live stream exposing Madison for something.
Oh, dag nabbit.
She sends me a message saying, "So, I'm going to be defending my statements against your claims publicly. There were no identifying characteristics that it was you. You are the one who decided to say that was me when nothing said it was about you. Is there any statement you would like to provide to me before I proceed? I'm not 100% what to even talk out with you." So now, since she said this via DMs, I'm now 100% sure I'm the one that said through Twitter, "Can we please talk via DMs?" I'm not 100% what to even talk out with you since you've decided to make this a public issue. Is there some common ground we can even find in this? Oh my god. You're going to make a public video. So of course I'm newly pregnant, which she never mentions, never has any concern about. And she's saying she's going to be doing all of this, putting all of that on me. And she's saying, is there some common ground we can find in all of this? Basically alluding to the fact that if you do something, then I'm not gonna make these videos. As all of you guys have guessed, of course, her holding that over my head that she's gonna come out with a live stream unless I delete my video.
This is just another example of Blair abusing the power that she holds over other creators. Until Madison offered to delete the section of the video talking about her, Blair wasn't even willing to respond to Madison's messages. And keep in mind that Blair was publicly threatening to bully Madison in a Twitch livestream and multiple YouTube videos, all while Madison was pregnant and trying to reduce stress. I'm really glad that Madison made this video to speak up and defend herself and share her side of the story. The way Blair treated her was horrible. And yet it's another example of Blair pretending to be friendly with another creator only to turn around and discard them once they're no longer useful to her. And all the threats that Blair had been hurling against Madison were part of yet another pattern of behavior. Blair's habit of threatening people until she gets her way. Legal threats and trying to silence critics. What's so wild about Blair is that her entire channel, Illuminaughtii, is about the ways that horrible companies exploit their workers and customers and how a lot of that exploitation comes from controlling other people, controlling what workers can say and what they can do. You would think that someone who has this core message would be open to criticism. After all, Blair herself supposedly believes that silencing your critics is a form of information control. So she would never try to control her own employees, right? She would never try to silence her critics. Ever since all of this information about Illuminaughtii has been made public, Blair has been doing exactly that, threatening her former friends and employees with cease and desists. It all started after Wonderstruck released his video discussing Blair's awful treatment of him when he was employed as an editor for her. On May 30th, Wonder tweeted, "Hey everyone, hope you're well. As many of you know by now, during this ongoing situation, I received a cease and desist demanding I remove my voice. Today, I have started a GoFundMe for anyone who wishes to aid legally in this matter. I intend to fight." Now, we briefly discussed Wonder's cease and desist in the previous video, but what happened next created a whole new wave of controversy. 1 week after, on June 6th, Oz Media, who so far had stayed largely silent on the issue other than to publicly support Wonderstruck's statements, tweeted this: "Guess who just got a cease and desist?" He then followed up this tweet with one further explaining the situation. "So, Illuminaughtii has officially sent me a cease and desist. Best part is she cites parts of her video which I had no part in, and demands I make a public apology. I haven't even made a video yet." So why was Blair trying to silence Oz Media when he hadn't even made a video about her? Though we've now seen videos about Blair from The Click, Wonderstruck, from Savannah Marie, from Cruel World Happy Mind, and more, we haven't seen a video from Oz Media, who was arguably the closest person to Blair this entire time. And if he hadn't even made a video, why was she threatening him? What exactly did she want him to cease and desist doing? A week later, on June 13th, Oz tweeted once again, saying, "Illuminaughtii sent a physical cease and desist to my dad's address as well, one I haven't lived at in 3 years, which she would know because I still live in the house we shared. Trying to scare my dad? You're forcing my hand here, something I initially didn't want to do." Due to Blair's continued threats, Oz decided that he finally had to make a video of his own. However, along the way, he ran into a variety of financial difficulties. While focusing all of his time on a video sharing his side of the story against Blair, Oz didn't have any new income from his channel due to the fact that he wasn't making regular content and instead focusing all of his time on this video. In addition, he would now have to get lawyers potentially involved in this situation and didn't have the funds to hire legal representation. And on top of all of that, as he would soon reveal, Blair had the power to foreclose on his home. So after a month went by and no one had heard any updates from Oz on this video that he was making, he posted the following update on Twitter. I am still working on my video. However, Blair is taking legal action against me to take my home. I need help with the legal costs and will be providing a full and detailed explanation on how I'm even in this position within my video. Below this tweet, he linked to a GoFundMe to pay for his legal fees and for his housing in the meantime. I'm gonna link this GoFundMe in my description below as well. Another 3 weeks went by without a video from Oz, which is why on September 16th, he posted an update video explaining the entirety of the situation, including the progress he'd made on an upcoming video, which has more than 600 sources, which is over 3 hours long, which has a 100-page script.
Sweet baby Jesus.
And he's not even done with it, it still has more work left to go. A video that he says he expects may one day end up in court. Oz Media speaks out. Oz's new video titled Let's Talk explained further details on his relationship to Blair, as well as the complexity of his situation, both emotionally and legally. At the beginning of this video, Oz explains that he's making this video to update his viewers because he doesn't want to leave people hanging without a full explanation of what's going on. He didn't want his viewers to think that he was just pocketing the money from the GoFundMe, and he wanted to give them full transparency on why he'd have normal content coming out within the coming weeks before his expose on Blair, just due to the fact that he needs some kind of cash flow in order to pay bills. And the main reason behind all of this is that Blair has gotten the law involved.
iilluminaughtii has taken this to a legal front, using the courts because of how poorly things went for her on the internet. As a reminder, for those of you unaware, iilluminaughtii started a fight with a lawyer on Twitter, accused him of copying her style, which then led to other content creators and past collaborators speaking out about their past interactions with her. iilluminaughtii is the one who took this off of Twitter and brought it onto YouTube, where she would then post a suicide note of one of her former employees for the world to see as an attempted own. Now, full transparency, I was one of the creators who spoke out against her, despite the fears and hesitations that I had.
And after this summary, this is when Oz gives us the big reveal. The fact that Blair wasn't just his former colleague and roommate, but also his ex-girlfriend.
For full transparency, which will be explored more in my future video, Blair and I dated. We were a couple for a decent chunk of time. This puts me in an ungodly complicated situation of doing everything that I can to try and separate the relationship drama from the public drama, as in the process of dating her, there are a lot of things which I bore witness to.
Like I said in my previous video about iilluminaughtii, I don't think there's any inherent immorality to mixing business and pleasure. As I mentioned in that video, I regularly hire my friends to work on projects with me, but you have to navigate the process carefully. When emotions and finances get entangled, things can get really messy and the door for abuse swings wide open. But instead of taking any precautions to keep her and Oz's professional and romantic relationships separate, Blair bulldozed right through that door to abuse and embraced it full force. And what we'll see is an example of not just a horribly abusive romantic relationship, but also an extremely unethical employer and worker dynamic.
Before anything else, I want to firmly state that this update is being made with the understanding that there is a likelihood that this will end up in a courtroom. I say this because things have been escalating quite a bit behind the scenes, and the stress has certainly been rising. What I can only describe as retaliation from the person who's my ex, former employer, and prior colleague, Blair is in the process of currently foreclosing my home.
If someone is your employer, they should not have the power to seize your home. Something's already very, very wrong if we're at that point.
To me, it feels like Blair is taking every course of action that she can to prevent this video from being produced, from legal threats to trying to take my home, which wouldn't be surprising, considering Blair's alleged white-collar crimes I intend to expose with evidence within my video.
So this is where we get the first bit of confirmation of something I think a lot of us were suspecting all along. That Blair was something of a scammer herself. Maybe she didn't run a literal pyramid scheme of her own, but according to Oz, she allegedly has some white-collar crimes in her past. White-collar crimes usually being things like embezzlement, extortion, tax evasion, just general crimes related to finance. You know, scamming people out of money, just like the subjects of her videos. It's time to climb into your own corporate casket, Blair.
Blair and I dated. We started when I was 20 and she was 28. And currently, I'm 23, almost 24. In the beginning, Blair walked me into several poor financial decisions. My naivety caused me to believe her reassurances that I could handle all of the financial obligations being dropped onto my shoulders by someone more experienced in life than I was.
So this is a perfect example of mixing business and pleasure done completely wrong. I don't think it's always wrong for romantic partners to work together. Like, I'm not gonna hate an elderly married couple who runs a cute craft store on the corner, or a boyfriend and girlfriend who decide to co-found a company together, or a creative team that ends up getting romantically involved. Look at Greta Gerwig and Noah Baumbach. They're in a relationship and they gave us the Barbie movie.
Wow, the Barbie Museum.
But I will say that working together as a couple involves a lot more foresight and careful navigation than working with a stranger does, especially when money's involved. In the piece that Oz just said, the relationship, both the business relationship and the romantic one, began with a power imbalance from the start. Blair was 28 years old while Oz was 20. And an 8-year age gap isn't necessarily always wrong, but at that age, it can make a huge difference. If I look back at 28-year-old Savvy, 28-year-old Savvy would not even recognize 20-year-old Savvy, but current Savvy, who's 31, is basically the same as 28-year-old Savvy. Most people really start to understand themselves and develop higher levels of empathy and emotional intelligence in their mid to late 20s, which is why it's very easy to take advantage of someone who is just 20 years old. I have a fall birthday, so 20 years old was the majority of my sophomore year of college. I was a massive hoe and a huge dumbass.
Harry, no! Don't look at the light! I can't help it. It's so beautiful.
And even though I was already interested in business and I was already starting up some of my own small ventures here and there, I still didn't have the financial literacy that a fully mature adult does. Many 20-year-olds are still living with their parents, and for those who have moved out, they're usually only in their first or second year of living on their own. A 28-year-old has so much more financial experience that it's not even funny. But Blair took advantage of Oz's lack of life experience and led him into some bad business deals. Here's how she did that.
At the time, Blair had bad credit, so all of the purchases, loans, everything was being placed in my name. This included the car that she purchased, then revoked from Wonderstruck. I was on the loan as a cosigner only because of my credit at the time.
And yeah, this makes sense. A lot of young people have decent credit simply because at 20 years old, you usually haven't had that much time to mess it up yet. If Blair at 28 had been taking out bad loans and doing a bad job paying her credit card bills, yeah, her credit would be fucked. So instead of dealing with the situation herself, she manipulated her much younger romantic partner into dealing with it for her, thereby putting his credit at risk. Wow.
This would lead me to asking Blair, my partner, for financial help for things such as my home, which she was living in. Help from my partner, who at any given time would be making up to 30 times my monthly income. These amounts of assistance would be added to a ledger of debt. And I want to clarify again, Blair wasn't my bank. She wasn't my landlord. She was my partner at this time. This ledger also includes things such as a non-refundable design fee and land deposit on a multi-million-dollar custom home that she threatened to break up with me if I didn't agree to proceed on this with her.
So now we see the power imbalance increase even more. Blair's not only older with more financial experience, but she's also at the point where she's making a lot more money than Oz is. As Oz claims, Blair was making about 30 times his monthly income. And because the two weren't married, and as far as I know didn't have any kind of combined bank account or jointly owned assets, Blair just had more power than Oz. In our world, more money unfortunately leads to more power. And this once again isn't to say that we should only get into relationships within our own income brackets. That would be a terrible idea to promote. Plenty of people have relationships with someone who make a lot more or a lot less money than they do. But once again, it requires careful navigation. Making a lot more money than your partner can absolutely lead to financial abuse if you choose to exploit that. And as we're seeing, Blair exploited it in every way possible.
Guilt from her telling everyone, from her friends to my friends, to her employees, to hell, even her Discord staff, about my finances, oftentimes unprompted.
So now we're seeing Blair allegedly turning financial abuse into emotional abuse. Not only is she controlling everything in their lives because she has all the money, but she's also using this fact to make their friends favor her, to poison the well against Oz and make him look like a gold digger.
Something to note, when you're around Blair, your world revolves around her. In my case, my home was hers, despite her name not being on it. I had no friends out in Colorado, a state that I moved to at the behest of Blair. Only Blair's friends were out here. All of my connections had to be approved by her. I wasn't allowed to be friends with people she didn't like, such as Click in One Topic, or even Wonder, once that bridge was burned and reduced to cinders. I was even in a position where my finances were nearly entirely controlled by her, from what debts I took on to later being the fact that she was the person who signed my paychecks.
Now we're just into full-on alleged abuse. When a partner moves across the country to be with you, they risk becoming isolated from their own friends and family. And yeah, people move for relationships all the time. That's not the issue in a vacuum. The issue is, once again, whether you support your partner within the situation or whether you take advantage of them. Blair, knowing that Oz didn't have his support system around him, then continued to isolate him by trying to police who he could and could not be friends with. And just when we think we've reached the height of abuse, we get this.
I felt indentured to her by this debt she had hanging over my head. Hell, I even took a position in her company at a lower pay to try and pay this debt back. Offered to work with her in her crypto farm for free to pay back the debt.
Yeah, if this is true, and I guess we'll wait for Oz's upcoming video to see all of the proof, but if this is true as he says it is, that is full-on indentured servitude.
That is demented. That is literal indentured. That is literally being indentured.
What Blair was doing here exists on the slavery spectrum. Oz also just drops in there that Blair had him working on a crypto farm for her, and I was like, whoa, 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 a crypto farm? Blair is trying to profit from crypto? But didn't she... Yeah, you know what? She did. Blair has made at least 6 videos about how crypto is shady, all while trying to profit from crypto herself. Here are some examples of what Blair said on her own channel.
I'm the Illuminati, and today we're going to talk about BitConnect, the cryptocurrency Ponzi scheme. I've had this one requested for a little bit now, and it seems that even though this Ponzi scheme was incredibly short-lived, it had a massive impact.
Notice those comments on the screen in that last clip, especially the one in the middle that says, cryptocurrencies are full-on Ponzi schemes and exit scams. So Blair's viewers don't just hate BitConnect itself as one bad apple, Blair's viewers are skeptical of cryptocurrency as a whole.
A promise that they can still make money with cryptocurrency. And that's how this scam really operates. I'm the Illuminati, and today we're going to be talking about crypto casinos. Cryptocurrencies such as Bitcoin, Ethereum, Tether, XRP, and more are on the rise. Using technology originally intended for encrypting data securely, non-fungible tokens are the latest permutation of the ongoing craze for cryptocurrency. Everyone's making them, everyone's buying them. No one has the faintest clue what they are or why anyone is doing this. Today, we're going to break down what those words mean and what exactly are the risks for dipping your toes into NFTs. Essentially, everything that exists online is built with code, and code reduces to numbers and letters. Hashing is a term for scrambling code for encryption purposes by running it through a complicated math algorithm. The goal is for any size input to be outputted as a hash, a collection of symbols of the same size as every other hash, with the additional requirement that the hash look close to random while still being deterministic.
For a more comprehensive look at some of the risks involved with crypto, I highly recommend watching the video Line Goes Up by Dan Olson of Folding Ideas, with sections titled The Unbearable Cringe of Crypto, Crypto Reality, and If This Looks Like a Scam. Dan explains how cryptocurrencies and NFTs incentivize gambling and risky investments and how the system is designed to fail.
I also learned a lot about fraud and how to do it both on purpose and by accident. The term rug pull, with its derivations rug and rugged, all to describe projects that made big promises but then took the money and ran, embedded themselves in my vocabulary extremely quickly. The market is just absolutely lousy with fraud and deception. Wash trading, where you sell something to your own sock puppets in order to lure in real buyers who think they're getting a good deal, is rampant. Market manipulation is so common and accepted that it's actually considered bad form if project leaders don't actively engage in it. Like, it's considered disrespectful to the buyers if the project leaders don't help them inflate the resale price. A low trust environment is also a low privacy environment. Anything you do on a blockchain is, by design, accessible to everyone who knows how to navigate the data. Now, you might be thinking, isn't that the opposite of how it's supposed to work? I thought crypto was all anonymous. So, yes, crypto is anonymous by default. There's no inherent requirement for proof of identity, and in fact, numerous applications that would benefit from a stricter one-to-one correlation between accounts and people struggle with this. On forums and social media, it's called sock puppeting. In crypto, it's called a Sybil attack, where users are able to generate numerous alternate identities by creating additional accounts or wallets. The epidemic of wash trading on OpenSea relies on the ability to pretend you're several different people as you buy apes from yourself for hundreds of thousands of dollars. Axie Infinity is a so-called play-to-earn video game based on Ethereum, but because Ethereum is too slow and expensive to interact with directly, the developers, Sky Mavis, created a side chain called Ronin, which consists of a governance currency called AXS, the game character tokens called Axies, and the in-game currency called Smooth Love Potions, or SLP. All of these components are built to function as money because that's what the machine is built to do. The so-called play-to-earn model is a great case study in what the end result of the crypto ecosystem actually looks like. Axie Infinity gets a lot of credulous coverage from the press because a handful of people in the Philippines are able to make a marginal living by playing the game and flipping their SLP, which lets Sky Maven turn around and pretend that they're a humanitarian organization and not a for-profit business who makes money off all the people rushing to buy a team of Axies believing that they can get paid just for playing.
So it's just extremely hypocritical that Blair would be running a crypto farm after all of the things she said against having this type of revenue stream. But let's get back to Oz's video.
When I was 23 and Blair was nearly 31, Blair, with her lawyer, would create an honestly quite confusing legal document for me to sign where I would agree to pay back her debt. Blair, being the person who signed my checks, knew that I couldn't afford legal representation. Blair also knew that the $2,500 that she was having me pay monthly towards that debt was almost as much as I was making monthly working for her.
What is it with everybody tricking people they supposedly love into horrible contracts? A month ago, I made a video on the lies behind the movie The Blind Side about how wealthy Tennessee restaurant franchise couple Sean and Leanne Toohey tricked then high school athlete, now retired NFL star Michael Orr into signing a conservatorship, all while lying to him that it was an adoption. Then, just the other week, I reviewed Jill Duggar's memoir in which she details the ways that her dad, Jim Bob Duggar, tricked her and her siblings into signing a contract that gave TLC the rights to the most private moments in their lives without letting them read the contract first. And now we're seeing Blair manipulating her at the time romantic partner, Oz, into signing a contract that essentially bankrupts him while paying her. What all of these situations have in common is that they take advantage of the other party's lack of resources. The other party maybe can't afford as much legal representation, and then they're automatically at a disadvantage, automatically susceptible to being scammed.
Blair would bring me to her lawyer's office, put me in a room alone with the two of them, with papers in front of me. Papers which I foolishly signed for a myriad of reasons, ranging from Blair expressing that this would mend our relationship, that it was the right thing for me to do, that this would also protect her legally and prevent her from getting into trouble with the IRS.
So we've got the crypto farm, and we've got the potential trouble with the IRS. Blair's honestly just behaving so much like the subjects of her own videos that this is wild.
She also would describe to me, and while I can't remember if this exact word was ever used, she essentially explained to me that because she used company funds to assist me, that she had committed embezzlement. And by converting the amount that I owed her into a loan with her company, this would save her skin legally. Now, to most people, that word may not have a lot of meaning. But to me, when I was 11, my mother was incarcerated for this exact crime, a remnant of the 2008 financial crisis. This taught me a very harsh lesson from an early age. But more importantly, Blair was aware of this past of mine.
Once again, we have emotional and financial abuse combined. Blair knew that Oz had a weak spot for trying to stop someone he loved for going to prison for embezzlement since he'd experienced that exact situation before. And Blair took advantage of that. How disgusting.
If you're looking for an easy point of evidence, as you can see with Wonder, Blair has a habit of taking advantage of younger men, 8 years younger than her, and their financial illiteracy for her own personal gain.
At this point, Blair is encroaching on the territory of not just being the next Creepshow art, but instead being more like the female Andrew Tate. For now, that's all the additional information that I've seen on the situation at the time that I'm recording. So what's next? I know I'm going to be waiting to see Oz's full video on Blair, and I don't know what we'll see happening regarding some of the legal stuff involved. I'd actually really love to see Legal Eagle do a a video on this whole situation that would make everything come full circle in such a weirdly satisfying and poetic kind of way. But I can only see things getting worse for Blair. It's gonna take a huge plot twist for things to suddenly get better for her, but then again, the 2020s are nothing if not a decade full of surprises, so I guess we'll have to wait and see. But honestly, I think it's highly unlikely that Blair will ever gain back the support of her former fans or will ever be able to return to her regular videos uninterrupted. You can't cultivate an entire audience of people who hate pyramid schemes, MLMs, highly controlling bosses, wealthy CEOs, billionaires, and shady business practices if you're going to also employ similar tactics in your own work. You can't expect your audience to then still respect you. The issue here is the expectation versus the reality. We want to know that when we watch a creator online, we're getting what we signed up for. That's why we don't see a creator like Ben Shapiro losing his audience when he says something homophobic. Ben's audience already knows he's homophobic. They are too, and they like that about him. Blair, on the other hand, pretended to be something that she wasn't. If she just branded herself as a manipulative, hyper-capitalist businesswoman on the way to the top, she could have gathered an entire audience of girl bosses and Elon Musk fanboys who wouldn't have had any issue learning these things about her.
I know it may look like I'd become a bitch, but that's only because I was acting like a bitch.
But to grow your following criticizing companies for doing things that you do yourself, well, that's just stupid. How can you possibly expect people to stick around? So I'll be waiting to see what comes next, and I'm curious what all of your thoughts are on this situation as well, so please let me know in the comments below. I will see you guys again next week for more videos, but in the meantime, I'd say don't forget to support small businesses, but with the caveat of don't do it if they're abusing their employees, and in which case you should just call them out the same as you would a big business, because that's bad too. Anyway, I'll see you guys again next week. Bye, friends!
Get you some nuts.
Yeah, you effing.
Up yours, woke moralist. We'll see who cancels who.